Hey everyone, I am with Luke Freiler, CEO of Centercode. Centercode looks like a freaking awesome tool for, a couple things, but I think, like just the idea of running a beta, like a proper beta, a lot of the time that's what we do. Hopefully all of us do early on when we're about to launch a new company, but it's not just that, right? We are constantly launching new, products and being able to do that in a efficient way, but also understanding in an intelligent way, getting all the analytics, getting all those insights, compiling those things are really, really important. So I'm really happy to have Luke on the show. Luke, how are you?
I'm great, sir. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Why don't you take a quick second, just kind of give folks a quick intro on your background and, what inspired you to launch Centercode?
Yeah, absolutely. Like most companies, for me, it came out of need. It was a necessity. I had a product manager come to me while I was running a web engineering team at Ericsson. So I started my career at Samsung. I was in hardware for a brief time and then jumped to software as soon as I could. Very early days of the internet, was very excited about what the internet could bring. And a bunch of us moved over to Ericsson together, kind of a group of people from Samsung. And there I was running a team that was web focused. We did the interface for our product, which was web based. We did internal tools. We did the marketing website. Everything sort of web sat under us. And a product manager came to me and he asked me to run a beta test for this home office product that we were bringing to market. And my first response to him was, okay, what does that mean? And he started to define a beta test for me in the most basic terms. And I was like, no, man, I know what a beta test is. I don't know what a beta test means at Ericsson. What is our process for doing that? And he said, oh, well, we don't have one. And I was like, that can't be. We're a 100,000 person company. We've been around 100 years. There's no way we haven't figured this out. We figured everything out at this point. And his answer was, look, man, I don't know what to tell you. I looked around, I talked to people, and I found nothing. I just need you to make it happen. And I was like, okay, well, can I outsource it? Can I find us a vendor? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And I was like, okay, great. And I looked around and I didn't find a solution. There was nothing out there. And at the same time, my sort of recent personal passion was surrounding what eventually became user experience, but at the time was more generically referred to as usability. Mm-hmm. Just the basic idea that products should be more accessible to more people. And this is in a time, we're now going back just over 20 years where typically technical products were used by technical people. And that sort of gap had not yet been gone through. So for me, I immediately saw this interesting necessary evil. I saw something that everybody felt was important to get a product in real customer hands and real environments prior to launching it. But nobody had really figured it out. And at the time, I hadn't quite yet figured out why they didn't figure it out. But eventually I recognized, because back in those days when everything was sort of waterfall development, you worked on something for 2 years and you put it out and it was kind of fire and forget.
Yeah.
What was happening is product managers were running these tests on their own because it was only happening, periodically, and they didn't have a centralized team or centralized process, which is exactly what happened at Ericsson. So they would do it once every couple of years, 18 months to 24, and then they would forget everything they learned by the time they had to do it again. And this just kind of happened in a cycle. And for me, I saw, as I said, a necessary evil. It's something that everybody has to do. And at the same time, it sucks. It's not, fun. It's the idea of giving kind of a broken, unfinished product to a big group of strangers is a tall order. So I just saw an opportunity. And from there, I got a few people from Ericsson, 2 people from my team, as well as my boss, actually. And we went off and started on this adventure and initially bootstrapped it and just have been passionate about it ever since.
That's awesome. As you speak to the story, it reminds me of my experience, certainly not at a large organization, but it was a early stage venture that I had co-founded back in 2000. And this was, I guess, the end of 2004, 2005. And we were launching essentially a MySpace, Facebook clone of, or within the travel category. And we sat in a room, my co-founder and I, for several days, wrote out a, PRD, and then outsourced the development, and we dropped like I don't know, I think it was like $200,000. And then well, I had just got out of college, right? So that was a lot of money for me, and had raised it from family and friends, built this thing that basically should have never been built, in a silo, no beta testing, nothing, right? Or at least what we thought was a beta at that time was, hey, let's build this bloated thing, throw it out there, and no one cared. And so, this was like in the beginning of when I started to hear about agile frameworks, Ruby on Rails. We were using that, and it failed. We eventually ran out of money pretty quickly because because of obvious reasons. And so doing this properly is actually like a pretty involved process. And I don't think, like, certainly back then there was zero resources. And even today, as we run a beta now, and just interacting with founders over the last 20 years, it's really an art and a science, is what it feels like. And so to have a platform like yours to really do it in a systematic way and an intelligent way is super valuable. I know you talked about usability, and over the last couple years, at least I've been very much focused within the SaaS B2B space. And we started to talk a lot about the consumerization of the enterprise, or the consumerization of B2B software, and how it would be more B2C like, and the emphasis on usability. And I think that my guess is there's a lot of reasons why that's the case, but I think my guess is PLG is part of that movement, right? Being able to just give that product to the end user to kick the tires on, and then eventually move into a paid paid version. Or PLG could be a credit card swipe that then eventually moves into like more of a direct sale or an upsell. If you were to think about your journey at Centercode, moving from the sales led motion to then now offering a PLG option, I guess my first question is, like, what inspired that? What were you looking at? Because you've had a successful business for quite a while. What were you looking at to say, we're going to invest in that PLG motion?
Sure. So one kind of interesting thing is I think going back, we wanted to be what is now called PLG from day one.
Mm.
And part of that is my company was founded almost exclusively by product people and engineers. We were all kind of sitting around that. We weren't salespeople. We didn't have skills there. We didn't really understand B2B sales. I was bringing in people that I knew from my prior enterprises to even help us wrap our heads around that, and be the adult on those first few calls, because I too was very young when I started this. My initial idea for this company was that I was going to sell this for a couple $100 a month online. It was going to be, credit card swipe. And I think had I really done that 20 years ago, it would have failed miserably. I don't think the world was ready for it. I don't think businesses bought that way. In those days, it was pretty typical that if you're in a large company, or most companies that would have this real need, you would sort of define that need. You would run it up the chain. They would look at various vendors. They would compare it. It would take a lot of time. Honestly, by the time they made a decision, it would probably address about half your needs. That was kind of the old way of buying software. And then they would roll that out to the whole company. And it was actually our first call from a very large company that led us down this path. I'm sitting here expecting to, basically sell it for a couple $100 a month. The first deal we ever closed of our software was actually a $300,000 deal. And wow. I never saw that coming. It was crazy. And it's a fun story on its own, but that put us down the sales led path. That's kind of how we got there. And every sort of price model we had, everything we explored from there always had a remnant of that, because there's such a constant fear of cannibalization and leaving money on the table and sort of trying to really understand what the market will bear. And we made a lot of mistakes. We learned a lot. We were bootstrapping. So in some senses, we were always on a timeline. We didn't have the biggest runway, but we also weren't really responsible to any outside funding at that time. So we could make a lot of our own decisions and not really have to worry about that blowback. So anyway, we were selling, we kind of fell backwards into the traditional SLG model because when we're selling to the company, they kind of led how we sold. So what changed for us though, and there's been a few movements in business and technology that have just opened our eyes to a better way. And obviously we're not alone, that many companies were the same. Agile was one of these big eye-opening things. Content marketing was one of these big eye-opening things. These are things that really appeal to product and engineering minded people. But PLG, once I sort of discovered it, and it was just one of those things where like, you've known it all along, it just has a name now.
Yeah.
And it has a name in part because it's a movement, because people are now adopting it. And, we were going through it ourselves. Figma and Slack were tools that we bought effectively in a PLG model, and tools that we were noticing we were now spending significant money on, right? When I first tried Figma, obviously it was free, fell in love with it. And now I think we spend $500-600 a month on it. We've never talked to a person at Figma, and it's been entirely product driven. I started using it, which is a little unique for the CEO to bring Figma in, but I'm a product guy still. So yeah. I brought in Figma, and it spread like wildfire through the company. And, we're a small company. For us to spend $600 a month on something that we've never even talked to a salesperson is kind of a neat thing to look at and study. So for us, that was always interesting. But the real reason that we went PLG, and it actually goes back to the initial story I told, is because the majority of our audience, the majority of our market is decentralized. And even today. So, in those old days when we could sell a deal for $300,000, it's because that company had a big team established that needed software to organize that team. They needed a system, and therefore they could justify that cost relative to that cost of that team. But in most companies, even today, individual product managers very typically take on this responsibility until they get to the scale and the opportunity to centralize that team. And what we realized when we were selling through that sales-led mode, which is a lot of friction and a lot of fact-finding and digging, and it's more of project management than anything. It's getting through procurement, and it's getting through technical review and all these things. Product managers who need to solve an imminent problem, something that's a threat, don't have the time and bandwidth to go through all of that. So we started to realize that while all of our success was in companies that were kind of mature and had a team developed around this, the majority of the market wasn't quite there yet. But if they had a tool like ours, they could get there. So for us, it's not really just about being PLG. In our company, we actually call it product-led sales. And what it is yes, you can go and you can use our product for free. We wanted awareness and exposure, which again is a very product-minded way of thinking about it. So we want companies to run successful programs for free. We then want them to grow into the just credit card swipe, and either they can keep going that route, or as they start to build teams around this and start to define roles around this, they now have a path to go through those traditional things that are necessary of a PO process, and again, a technical review and making sure all the legal stuff is handled. Thankfully, we're kind of going backwards into PLG, so we have that part solved. What we saw of most PLG companies, the Atlassians of the world and whatnot, they started with pure credit card and whatnot, but realized that it was actually stifling their growth opportunity, because once you do become established in that company and they're large and reliant on you, they're going to have to start checking some boxes, and they're going to have salespeople that can take them through that process and whatnot. So for us, it's not about just being PLG. It's about being both as a go-to-market that grants us awareness. I would rather spend money on servers for people to try our platform than I would Google ads, right? Yeah. And then spend a bunch of time with 3 meetings before they even see our software, which is very typical in the sales world. So for us, it was about addressing that decentralized market and that opportunity in what is still to this day a pretty immature market, and then giving them the opportunity to grow within our platform and just buy what they need when they need it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, because I think that as we've had a lot of conversations with revenue leaders and founders and marketers, PLG seems to transcend functions as well. And it really needs to, right? Because there needs to be a shift across every organization to accommodate for the motion that PLG would be able to power. But one of the things that we kept running into over and over again as we've had this conversation is like sales and revenue leaders going, no, like our product, we can't have a PLG motion. Our product requires a salesperson. And so making that shift to like, PLG is a entry point, can be an entry point, right? And it's certain for your organization, it's in a product that requires, a more complex procurement process or assessment process and these sort of things. Then it's a channel, the way that I see it personally, just as I've had so many conversations over the last couple of years, and even my own experience when I was a salesperson at a ad tech business, many years ago. And this is what, 2011 or so, and we ended up exiting that business in 2013. We were PLG. We were an ad tech business that was selling an an ad server to the mobile publishing ecosystem back then. And we would essentially say, hey, drop in our SDK in the application, start to test it out. If we're cutting you checks, then it's working, right? Then we can talk about a formal BD contract. And that was PLG. That was an entry point, but we also had other channels. We also had inbound and we also did outbound. And then we fused those more traditional entry points or channels with the PLG experience, right, where we would give them the free trial and all that. So I think that's one of the things that I love, that because I guess OpenView in Boston has formally came up with that new category and sort of codified that now, and because that happened, now there are all these organizations that are really looking at it and saying, well, how do I adopt this to my motion? And so, like you talking about PLS and product-led sales, I think that's one of the most exciting pieces, is to shift from this, oh, it's got to be a MailChimp and swipe credit card and you don't talk to a salesperson, and I get that, to no, it depends, and there's a lot of different flavors, and it's about how does it work for your organization, your space, your buyer persona, and so on. So I think that's, what you said really resonates pretty deeply with me. I remember having a conversation with the first business leader at Asana many years ago, and I've told this story a couple of times because I think, it's pretty valuable in that I remember he told me that they started off pretty PLG. Of course, their founders were like Facebook, engineers, right? Dustin and Dustin, right? I think they were both Dustin, but they were trying to kind of reinvent the user experience, and they had all this cool technology, but eventually they had to launch an enterprise team. I had another friend who actually went over and was running that function for a while. He might be still, but when I talked to him, and I would say I probably talked to him the last time maybe 2 years ago or so, and he was like, man, we have a pool of PLG signups that we now can leverage, absolutely, but we're fusing it with the older school enterprise to get those big, meaningful deals. It's the old motion. So just for folks out there listening, like it is a very flexible, approach. It doesn't have to be your own approach, or only approach, I should say. And it's really about accommodating it and adapting it to what makes sense for your organization. So don't be scared to try a PLG motion. But I do think it has to start at the top. And you have to support it. You've seen organizations launch like a free version or whatnot multiple times, and it ends up being this like side project that no one supports. And that's obviously not a good use of time as well. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, obviously it started with me and a lot of passion, but for us it wasn't, and it was very challenging to make this clear to everybody, from the employees to the board, is this isn't a pivot. It is a new channel. This wasn't about, we are now a PLG company. And I think when you read about sort of OpenView and what they've done in their world of, in that category, and get excited about it, when you talk about PLG, it sounds like, okay, we are now a PLG exclusive company. That's now what we do. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I will admit, if you are going that route, it will take a lot of PLG business to account for even one, typical enterprise deal. So we don't look at PLG as being even a meaningful source of revenue right now. We placed 0 revenue goals on it this year. For us, it's all about a new channel awareness. If it grows and becomes a meaningful material chunk of revenue, then that's great. But it's more about getting people to use the product, showing them the value. And we believe that's the best way to bring them in and grow and mature with it as they start to dedicate more resource and understand, oh, wow, I can get all of this out of this program. So for us, that's been the good opportunity. And it was a lot of work to slice up an enterprise product and build editions based on complexity balanced with value so they can get going quickly and deciding what table stakes really are and then learning from the early stages. And we're still in that learning phase. I think we always will be.
Yeah.
But it's exciting, it's fun, it's scary, but I definitely think it is the modern way to look at things. When I first brought it to my board a while back, I think they looked at me like I was crazy, like I was inventing it. And I was like, man, I wish I invented this. I would be much further in my career had I invented PLG. The reality is I'm watching what a lot of smart people are doing and trying to figure out how to apply it to my business.
Yeah. That's you mentioned something there. It's like, it's a little scary. And that's another pushback that sometimes I think folks have, is like, what's the balance between the feature sets and the value that you provide in that free version so it doesn't cannibalize a sales led value, right? And frankly, that's hard. I remember being at a startup, I don't know, this was '08 or so. And we had a free version and then I think it was like 2 other versions that were like credit card swipes, and then a variety of different versions that were sales led. And it was this constant battle between the product managers running the freemium credit card swipe, products, what we were calling long tail, and then the sales led products. I mean, and you if you were a salesperson, you got on the phone, you called Pepsi, and your prospect was like, oh yeah, I'm using your $20 a month one, and why would I pay $20K now? And that was just terrifying, right, as a salesperson. So finding that balance is so interesting. And and it seems like that is a constant conversation because of the fact that you're obviously pushing new features and trying to drive value on both sides. So
I will say that I don't think there's a more paralyzing aspect of business than the fear of cannibalization. I think you weigh every decision you make in product against it, and so often you don't really know what it's going to do, and in many cases you can't know what it's going to do. There's so many moving parts, and you just have to take the plunge from time to time for the greater good. One thing we did that is a bit out there, and I don't know if it works yet because it's new, but we don't have a sales exec team anymore, or account exec team anymore. We don't have any salespeople selling to new customers. And that was a decision that took a long time to come to. But ultimately, what I have now is the PLG product. And when people get serious about moving up, they're talking directly to one of my product managers. And again, being a product-led CEO, I have probably a bigger product team than most companies of our size. And at the same time, those are people that are highly passionate about our space, highly knowledgeable about our space, know everything there is to know about our platform. And I can trust them with a lot of agency that a quota-minded salesperson, I simply couldn't trust it around. So when you buy from us now, you're not buying from someone with a commission or a quota. And that's, again, very scary to the wrong people. But for us, I think it's the right move right now. I can't say it'll be the right move in 2 years, 3 years. It's certainly not an infinite scalable growth strategy. But most companies, including ourselves in the economy we're in, aren't thinking about an infinite scalable growth strategy like we were maybe 2 years ago. We're thinking about getting through the short term and then propelling ourselves, from there. So for me, that's been the decision, and the org change we've made recently is we no longer have BDRs, AEs. We have account managers. We still have a lot of ownership and sort of CSM and growth from that. But if you're using our product, we didn't want a situation where somebody who has actively used our product for 3 months, 6 months is talking to a salesperson who hasn't. So the idea is, if you call and you want to talk about next steps, you want to grow your program, you need some best practices, I'm putting my best and brightest on the product side on the phone. And we want those relationships to be strong.
Beautiful. Speaking of a beta program, what would you say, just in your experience, finding product market fit? And this is a big question, right? So I know maybe just some highlights here, but from your experience, finding product market fit and running a successful beta, what does that entail? Like, are any sort of high level takeaways that folks can take?
Yeah, when it comes down to it, beta testing is all about really three aspects. You want to make sure you have the right users in their real environments, and you want to make sure it happens over enough time to make sure that product is adopted. And typically that doesn't take very long, but it is one of the key differentiators from simply testing it, via script in a lab or an observed UX test. So first of all, it's about the right people. And for every test, what you're looking for is people that have the problem that your product solves. And that is so critical. It's not friends and family and whatnot. It's not people that are going to see something and say, oh, that might be challenging for someone else. You want people who are that someone else. So, the biggest problem in our space is actually engagement. It's I recruit a bunch of testers and they simply don't do anything. They don't feel accountability. They don't feel like they're part of a team. They just kind of saw something maybe for free and decided to kick the tires and walk away. And what we've found is if you have the right people with the right motivation and you present the right messaging, you make them feel like they're part of the team, you make them feel accountable, then your engagement is not only going to be awesome, but those people are going to become evangelists for your company. They're going to become someone you can call on again and again. So the testers with the right motivations who have the problem that your product solves is step one. From there, it's about just active communication to gather their feedback and making sure that feedback is something you can do something with. And what we've spent a lot of time in recent years doing is making sure that all of our feedback is meaningful and not just generic discussions. And for us, that meant making sure that we're really always looking for three things. It boils down to three simple things. We're looking for issues in the product that aren't, the product's not behaving as expected, as designed. We're looking for areas of improvement, everything from small tweaks to new features. And then we're looking for praise. What is it they love about it? And issues, ideas, and praise are kind of the key words here. We think of it as, what do you need to fix? What do you need to improve? What do you need to promote? And if you're going at it with those three things in mind, then you're going to provide something to virtually every side of your organization to ensure a successful product launch. And in our system, what it's really about is taking all of that and saying, okay, if you've got it baked into that clean a system, we can start automating this. And when we went PLG, it wasn't about, okay, what features do we slice out of our platform, this big enterprise sandbox? What do we slice out so that it'll make sense from a value perspective? It wasn't about that at all. It was, how do we give the right technology to our audience so that they can succeed while putting minimal time into this? And I set some priorities for my product team and my company that, look, we know that when we come out with a PLG product, it's not going to produce as good a result with a part-time investment as a company like Peloton or Sonos that has a full team around this. So it was, how can we get 75% of the value with 15 to 20% of the time investment? And then how can we leverage technology and automation to get that done? So we built around those tenets, and now we have something that a product manager can succeed with on their own. And again, they're just things like that idea of issues, ideas, and praise just become built into the DNA of the product at that point. Our upper editions allow them to go crazy and customize those things and create their own, feedback types and customize every field, yada, yada. The reality is a product manager who's got this put on their plate doesn't have the time or bandwidth to do all of that. And therefore they don't have the need. We need to provide them with guardrails, basically. And those guardrails, that prescriptive approach is going to give them everything they need to succeed. So hopefully that answers the question, but that's really where our head is.
Yeah. And if you were to think about post-launch, like, a lot of these conversations, I think, at least in my experience, happen pre-launch and putting that together. But if you were to think about like what user testing should look like post-launch and who should own it, should it be the product manager, and should it sort of continue to follow some of the stuff that you just spoke to right now?
Ideally, in our perfect world, product managers would not own this. We think there's a lot of benefits to them owning it. We think it's a kind of a perfect reflection of who they are It's really about understanding the product, the customer, the business, the market. So there's a lot of value, and it really does help them be the smartest person in the room. That was kind of one of our other tenets. But at the same time, they don't have a lot of bandwidth, and they don't have time for new constant engagements. So we built it to be fully possible and make a lot of sense. But we would still say, in an ideal world, what you're seeing most agile companies do is build roles and teams around it. So, if you look at any company that kind of started in the last 10 years or so and has reached any type of scale, those are our customers that are really using our platform to its fullest, and they've dedicated full teams to it. And then sometimes those are sub teams of product. One of the most common ones we see that we're really passionate about is the idea of support teams taking it on. Support teams are full of people that are both technical and customer savvy, which are both really key resources for this. So we often see people come out of a support profession and move into this. Companies that have much more technical needs to their product, there's a lot more that can just technically go wrong. It'll often come out of QA. You'll have a QA person who realizes, hey, instead of just producing, my results, I can be an orchestrator for hundreds of volunteer testers. And now, as one person within the org, I can produce 10 times the results that I could have done on my own. So we see those people, kind of light bulb goes off, and they're the ones who want to take it on. Again, if it's a very engineering minded organization. But we've also seen marketing teams take it on. We've seen, pretty much anyone and everyone, even sales teams in certain companies. I was talking to someone at Square, actually. She was on our podcast recently at our company, and she came out of sales, the head of beta there, because they were using beta as a way to interact with kind of VIP customers to see what they wanted next and make sure that it fit their needs. So it really can come from anywhere. Product is fully capable, and we did build a solution for them because they are the ones that have the immediate need. But as the company matures, a dedicated role, dedicated teams, that's where we typically see it go.
That example you just spoke to around Square really kind of brought up the idea of like customer advisory boards. And how do you do more from a customer advisory board than just buying them dinner and, building relationship, like get them into a product, get them into that testing, make them feel VIP.
Yeah, seat at the table. That's what it's all about. And yeah, a lot of our customers do use our platform for that as well. The difference between how products are developed now and decades ago really comes down to they're iterative. You used to release a product, and then 24 months later, you do the next one, fire and forget. You can't think like that now. Basically, customers expect most products to behave more like services than products of the past. So for us, there is no end to the testing. You're typically doing a bigger test when you bring it to market for the first time because you have to make sure everything works. But from that point on, you're going to iterate, virtually any modern product. So from there, the ecosystems around those products are going to change. Therefore, your product's going to have to change with it. All of that needs to be tested. The problem is, at any point, if your product could sort of brick, you're going to lose future customers, lose brand, value. So we see continuous testing being pretty much what everyone's doing now. Just like you have continuous QA and continuous release, continuous integration, you have the continuous testing as well.
Awesome. Luke, thank you so much for being on the show. Very much appreciated. Like, I haven't had a conversation with someone who's like just such an expert in this category. So I really learned a lot. Thank you so much. If folks wanted to maybe learn more about Centercode, maybe sign up. I know you have a community as well. That is fantastic. That's one of the things that I love about your company as well. Like, you've built an ecosystem. I think that your beta sign up community was like 250,000 folks or something in that database.
Old number, bigger now, but yeah. So if anybody wants to test products, you just want to kind of be involved and see it from the tester side. We have a community called betabound.com. And at the same time, if you want to find testers, and that's really your only need right now, we actually will announce people's tests there at no cost for free. That is just kind of a network for both testers and companies to get together. And obviously, we use it for a lot of our customers to help find them great testers. So betabound.com, exactly as it sounds. Go there, sign up. You can experience our platform from the tester side, and you can be recruited to test new products. And obviously, you'll see all sorts of things right on that homepage that are currently available for test. On the other side, if you're a company looking to implement a program, you can learn more about us at centercode.com, just the two words, Centercode. and signup.centercode.com if you want to try our product for free. And you can go in and, like I said, you can credit card swipe to upgrade to what we call our Delta edition, which is our product manager oriented edition. Happy to help anyone there. And then also, if you're a leader of product or whatever else, feel free to reach out to me, Luke@centercode.com. I'm not as active on the social world as I should be. I'm much more of an old school email guy, but I do answer every email. So Luke@centercode.com, happy to converse with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir.